All right, learning goal for today. The student will understand how to solve problems using the formula for circumference of a circle. So now we're just going to get into using the formula now that we understand where pi comes from. Okay, all right. So let's kind of again look at what we did yesterday. So I've got some of the videos that I showed up here. I'm not showing them again today. But if you look here, we've got diameter, we've got our circumference going all the way around, and right here, here is the formula to always get pi. Circumference divided by diameter. What we're going to use for pi in this unit is either 3.14, because we're going to round, okay, or the fraction 22/7. Now, here's the thing. Do you guys remember when they said that pi is irrational because it goes on forever and ever and ever? Do you guys remember the definition for rational numbers? Rational numbers do repeat, yeah. We said all rational numbers can be written as fractions, okay? So 22/7 is really not pi, but it's the closest thing that we can write to pi, okay? So just kind of remember that fraction's not exactly. All right, so here's the two formulas. See if this makes sense. Let's say I wanted to go backwards, okay? Let's say I had a monster circle, and it would be very hard for me to take a piece of string and go around the sun. I mean, that's probably going to be impossible. Okay, but I could take a picture of the sun and figure out how to measure its diameter. So let's pretend that all I know is the diameter. I could multiply that by pi, and then I would get the circumference. Does that make sense? Because what we're saying is the circumference around is always about 3 times bigger than its diameter. So I can use that formula. And then, of course, the other formula, why did they add a 2 on this formula? Can you tell me why? Isabel?
Because it's the radius, and the radius is 2 times half of the size of the diameter.
Does that make sense? A radius is half of it. So in order to get a diameter, don't I always have to multiply it by 2? So that's why that's where the 2 comes from if you're using radius. But if you're using diameter, you just have to multiply it by pi. Okay? All right, so let's actually use this a little bit. All right, so the first thing you're going to see is you're going to see what's called an estimated answer. Anytime you take a decimal and it's a long decimal and you shorten it, you no longer have an exact answer. That's why mathematicians like to use fractions, because then you get exact answers. Okay, so this is just an approximate answer. So it says find the circumference of a circle. The digits is going to say use 3.14 for pi. Write an integer or decimal rounded to the nearest hundredth as necessary. So you guys all know if you do it wrong, digits will count it wrong. So you have to read. All right, so here's our formula. Right now we know the diameter. So that means we're going to use this formula because it has diameter in it. So if I want to find the circumference, I'm going to take pi times the diameter, which is 20. Okay? All right, so then I'm just going to pull up my calculator. Maybe. Calculator. So 3.14 times 20 is this number, 62.8. Told me to round to the nearest hundredth, so 62.8 would be rounded to the nearest tenth. The circumference is 62.8, and my units here would be feet. I do want you to get used to putting your units in, because when we switch to area, the units change a little bit, so I want you to get used to doing that. Does that seem easy enough? All right, let's try another one. All right, find the circumference of a circle. Again, use 3.14 for pi. Round to nearest hundredth as needed. Okay, so what do I know this time? Kendall. I know the radius of this one. And so which formula am I going to use?
Well, first it was 9.5 times 10.
Sure, I could do that and use the first formula. No, you're exactly right. Or I could go right to this formula because it has the r in it, which I'm still going to multiply by 2. All right, so circumference equals 2 times pi times the radius, which is 9.5. And multiplication, does it matter what order I multiply? Meaning, is 5 times 3 the same as 3 times 5? Yes, so you can can multiply that however you want, but we need to take 2 times 3.14 times 9.5. All right, so 9.5. So 9.5 times 2 times 3.14 gives me 59.66. And what did it tell me to round to? Did it tell me? 59.66. And it says round to nearest hundredth. What place value is this again? Tenths. What's this? Hundredths. What's the next one? Thousandths. Good. Very good. And my units here would be centimeters. All right. So to me, that's the easiest. Well, actually, it's probably not even. There's one even easier. All right. Did I put? Oh, I just used words. All right. I want you guys to go ahead and do this one, and then we'll check it. Yeah, there you go. You just gotta do it backwards. So if I put this into the formula, it's telling me the circumference this time, and I'm trying to find the diameter. So I want to use this formula right here. So I'm going to put 27 in for the C equals, and then I don't know the diameter, and then pi. And pi is 3.14. So actually I'm going to put that in here. So does this make sense? If I do it like that, do you see where I got all the numbers? Isn't that just a one-step equation? How do I solve a one-step equation? You just divide. Okay. Now, why am I showing it to you? That because it's you're like, well, that's pretty easy. Because hey, guess what? Formulas are going to get way bigger. And so if I teach you like this, then they're not going to freak you out as much. Okay. So yeah, I'm just going to get d by itself. Divide both sides by 3.14. So 27 divided by 3.14, and I get this big number. That's what I'm getting. Is that what you guys got? And it said to round to the nearest tenth, so we just went over place values. So 8.5987. Which number is in the tenths place? The 5, right? So what number am I supposed to look at? The 9. And remember, 5 and above, you give it a shove. 4 and below, let it go. So what do I do with this 5 right here? I push it up to 6. So 8.6, and it tell me units, centimeters. Did anybody get that? 2 people. Okay, but do the rest of it, does it make sense for everybody else? That's all. Okay. All right. Sorry. I was thinking, oh, it's the same one again. And it really wasn't. All right, so next part of this, now we're going to use exact answers, okay? So this is what mathematicians will use a lot. You'll use this a lot later at the high school when you're doing stuff with pi, is a lot of times we don't even write 3.14 out. We leave it in terms of pi, is what that's called. So it says find the circumference of a circle. Write the exact answer in terms of pi. Watch how easy this is. Do I know diameter or radius? Diameter. So I'm going to use this formula, right? Okay. So I'm going to write C equals 7 pi. And my answer is 7 pi. I'm done. Because what is that telling the person to do? Okay, well, it's telling people to multiply 7 times pi. But if I get another problem that has pi in there, they might cancel out. So I can just leave that. That is the most exact answer. Because I can't really multiply by pi. Because what happens when I multiply by pi? Maybe, maybe not. I don't get the exact answer because is there any way for me to put every digit of pi? No. So that's why that is the most accurate answer. 7 pi. It's no longer an estimate. That is exactly what the answer is. I just can't put the exact answer. Kind of like, do you remember when we used to shade the graphs? Remember when we shaded a graph? And then we shaded in the arrow at the end? What did that arrow mean? It was going on forever. Could I actually put all the numbers that go on forever?
Yeah.
I could. Don't lines go on forever? So see, I could never put it all there. That's kind of what this is. I could never put all the numbers there, so this is the closest thing I have to saying that's the exact answer. Okay, so super easy if they ask for exact answers. All right, so let's look at this one. Find the circumference of a circle. Write an exact answer in terms of pi. Which formula do I need to use then? The formula that has what in it? C equals what? But do I know diameter here, technically?
C. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to say C equals the 2 pi R1. And then I'm going to say, okay, circumference equals 2 times pi times the radius, which is 12. And so if I want the exact answer in terms of pi, what is my exact answer in terms of pi? 24 pi. See how easy that is? Now, this definitely is going somewhere. You're going to see more of this stuff, but this is just the beginning of how to use pi and to get comfortable writing it, because it seems really weird to write that. All right, so the next thing, because there's 3 parts, the third part, this is I called this better estimate. I didn't know how to say it because it's still an estimate, but it's better than using 3.14, and that's using the fraction instead. So you're going to see some of them that say use 22 over 7 for pi. So this says the distance around a meteor crater, so distance around is 9,737 feet. Find the diameter of a crater. Okay, so we are going to use this formula, right? Because they're talking about diameter and circumference. Okay, what numbers should I put in here? Where does that number go? So the circumference, right? Okay, so I'm going to put in that number in for the circumference. So right here, 9,737 equals, do I know D?
Yeah.
Isn't that what I'm trying to find? What does it say right here? Find the diameter, so that's the part I don't know. Okay, times. Now, do I know what I'm supposed to put in for pi this time?
Yeah.
22 over 7. Okay, now, just process this for a minute. Now, I could rewrite this so it looks like a better one-step equation, right? I could write 9,737 equals 22 over 7 times D. Who remembers we did one-step equations like this way back in the day? How do I get rid of that 22 over 7 next to the D? Cassie?
Wouldn't you divide it by itself?
I do divide it by itself, but when I divide a fraction, what do I have to do anyway? Reciprocal. So do you remember when we talked about you could multiply that by its reciprocal to both sides? So this side I can say times 7 over 22. Do you guys remember this? Is it coming back to you? Times this side, 7 over 22. All right. I don't know if 22 goes in there so we can cross reduce. Let's see. So 9,737 divided by 22. Nope, it doesn't. That's not going to make things fun for us. Okay. So how do I multiply fractions? How do I multiply fractions? Just go across. Just go across. Now, that's what I was checking for simplification, but this ends in an odd number here, and 22 doesn't go in there, so I can't cross reduce. That's what I was checking for. All right, so let's go ahead and multiply. So we have 9,737 times 7, and I get 68,159 over how much? Over how much? 22. Okay, and now I need to keep that in fraction form. So don't I need to see how many times does 22 go into that number? Which is, all I have to do is hit divide by 22. It goes in a total of 3,098 whole times. And then we got to figure out how many is left over. How am I going to figure out how many is left over? See? That will help me estimate, but it's not going to help me come up with the fraction. Do you know how to come up with that second fraction? So I already know 22 goes in there 3,000 whole times. So what do I need to do next to figure out how many is left over? Cassie? Okay, unfortunately this one does not tell me how. Okay, what is the diameter of a circle with a circumference of 88 feet? Okay, so I'm going to start with my formula, and I want my diameter formula. Circumference formula with diameter in it, sorry. Okay, so what do I plug in?